Hello Internet, Danny here today with a video that I've been meaning to make for a couple of weeks, but I just seem to keep hitting some roadblocks, so I'm going to try something new with this video. Usually when I make videos I have a lengthy script written out so I can make sure and get across all the points exactly how I want to get them across and not waste your time in doing so. And this video I thought might be better if it was just a little more of a conversational feel to it. So I'm trying something new and we're just going to wing it. I've got a couple pages of notes here to keep me on track and help remind me of all the things that I want to say. But for the most part, I just want to sort of have a conversation here. So this video is intended to be a follow-up to my previous video about Lyme disease, biological warfare, the CDC, and the United States government. So first I just want to say thank you to everyone who watched that video. I know it was an hour long and it was pretty intense, so I wasn't really sure if anyone was going to make it all the way through to the end. But a lot of you did, and I got some really encouraging feedback from y'all, so I just wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate that. It's been really encouraging, and this video is just going to answer some of the questions that I got and just respond to some of the feedback. And I'll take you from where that video ended when I went into remission about the beginning of the 6th grade all the way through to today and the treatment that I am on right now. And let's just see how this goes. So where that video left off was at the end of a 3-year struggle with Lyme disease. I found myself going back to school full-time for the first time at the beginning of the 6th grade school year, and that is the point that I consider myself to be fully in remission. Although at that time I thought that I was cured, and I wish that was the case. That was not the case. My dad mentioned in his letter that when I got well, they packed up all the Lyme books and journals and put them in a box and put the box away, and that's literally what they did, but it's also figuratively what we all did. The years with Lyme were so intense, not only for myself, but for my parents and family as well, that you know, we really did just try to put it behind us. And I don't really blame them for that, but we didn't really talk about it after I got well. And one of the first big questions, I guess, on a lot of people's mind is, why did I just go into remission at that time? Why was the treatment not enough to fully cure me? And why did it, if it went into remission, why did it then come back in my late 20s? And sort of what's the deal with that? So I'm going to try and address that as best as I can. I believe the reason that the Lyme disease only went into remission at that time is partly because of the length of time that it took for me to start receiving treatment initially. The Borrelia Burgdorferi bacteria are literally corkscrew-shaped little bad guys, and the longer they're allowed to be in your body, the deeper and deeper they literally drill into your body and your cells, and they get into your different systems and eventually into your brain. So early stage Lyme is very superficial, surface level, fevers, headache, flu-like symptoms, that sort of thing. And then as the stages progress, you'll see more and more, I don't know, the best word I can think of is deeper symptoms. You get the arthritis, hormone problems, and neurological symptoms. So you get, insomnia, anxiety, even audio and visual hallucinations, and memory loss, and things of that nature. So because the various doctors that my parents took me to initially said, well, the CDC says there's no Lyme disease in Oregon, therefore there's no Lyme disease in Oregon, therefore it's impossible that you have Lyme disease, therefore you're faking it, so no treatment, for a very long time. And the bacteria were allowed to run wild inside my body and progress to those later stages, whereas if I had received treatment in a reasonable amount of time, that could have been stopped. So I believe that's part of the reason. Another reason is just the nature of the bacteria themselves. They are tricksy little things, and they have a number of tricks to hide inside your body when they go into remission. They can drill inside and stay dormant inside of healthy cells. When the bacteria gets down to a certain number, your body sort of thinks it's one, and there's a number of bacteria still inside you lurking around hiding. And one way they do that is by drilling into healthy cells and hiding there. And they also have an ability to create a hard shell around themselves that's called a biofilm. And the shell can be fully impenetrable by antibiotics, which makes it another reason that Lyme disease is so hard to cure, is that it can just encase itself in this protective shell and antibiotics can't penetrate it. And it can just stay there. So part of the Lyme treatment is antibiotics, but also something to soften or disintegrate that biofilm, knowing that there's going to be some who try to save themselves by encasing, and so you got to wipe those ones out too. So I believe that I went into remission because my treatment was good enough to knock out most of the bacteria, but there were a few sneaky ones that hid somewhere in my body and just waited for an opportunity to come back. Another thing that is sort of hard to figure out how to talk about is that most of my symptoms went away when I went into remission. Some of my symptoms stayed around the entire time. And it's hard to explain that to people because they think, how could you possibly, you're saying that you've been sick your entire life from this thing, from 8 years old, but I hear it's such a debilitating thing, like how could you possibly have had it this whole time? And I think there's a couple reasons for that. One is I just have a very strong stubbornness and willpower, and denial. So I was able to sort of push things aside. And that goes hand in hand with, well, I was sick, so sick when I was so young that when it went into remission in the 6th grade, the symptoms that lingered, I guess I just convinced myself that they were normal and that everyone must have symptoms like this. Everyone must deal with this. So the symptoms that never went away are insomnia from 8 years old to now, and insomnia is one of my worst symptoms still. I've had insomnia since I got bit by a tick, and it's debilitating insomnia. So it's not just like sometimes I can't get to sleep until like midnight, and it's cycles of insomnia where some nights I literally do not sleep at all, and I stare at the back of my closed eyelids the entire night. It's insomnia. Some nights are my heart literally just pounds, and I can just lay there and I can feel my heart beating, and I feel like my heart beating is like pounding so much that it's like moving the blanket on top of me. And with the heart racing goes mind racing, and I'm just not able to stop thinking about things. And I try to clear my mind, and I try to meditate, and I try to pray, and I try to just close any way possible just to shut my brain down, and I can't. And it's because my heart's racing and just like pumping this blood throughout my body. And this is like when it first went into remission, even, 6th grade, junior high, high school, early 20s, like I was dealing with this all the time. And I just thought that everyone, I didn't know that it wasn't normal. And I can't say that I honestly didn't know. I don't know if I didn't know or if I was just really good at convincing myself that it was normal, because the thought that I could possibly still have Lyme disease was the scariest thing possible and my biggest nightmare. And so those two sort of go hand in hand, if that makes any sense. I hope this is making sense and I'm not just rambling. Another symptom that never went away that sort of goes along with the insomnia is night sweats. So on the nights that I was able to sleep, I would just wake up drenched in sweat. And not just like kind of a little bit hot, but like literally just like soaking the blankets sweat. And I just thought that was normal and dealt with it. And also one of the classic Lyme disease co-infection, babesiosis symptoms is having hot feet at night. And this is a weird one where just as soon as I lay down, my feet up to the middle of my calves would just be on fire. And when I think about it, I really can't help but laugh because it's so ridiculous that I remember in my second marriage with Abe trying to go to sleep and laying on my side of the bed and just kicking my feet under the covers and driving him crazy. And he would say, "Please stop that. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that?" And it was the only relief that I could get was just those couple of moments while my feet were getting wind on them from kicking them under the covers, that it would slightly cool them off. And then as soon as I stopped, sure enough, they would just be on fire again. And it's like, how does someone go so many years dealing with those things on an almost nightly basis and not ever ask, well, maybe it's Lyme, you know, but I never did. And again, you know, I could just say this all day, is that was my biggest fear, but also, like, because it was my biggest fear, I was just able to push it away. I would never ask that question. Just never, never, never ask that question. So, somewhere around like 2013, I think, I was 29 and I stopped taking birth control that I'd been on for over 15 years continually, and my period didn't come back for a little over a year. And so during that year, I was outwardly seemed pretty healthy. I was exercising all the time. I was in shape, taking care of myself. And so I went to a number of doctors to get tests and figure out, you know, what's going on. And at that time is when I found out that I had a lot of hormone imbalances, which is another symptom of late-stage Lyme, and really, really imbalanced to the point that one doctor said that, well, at 29, I have the estrogen level of a postmenopausal woman, and she, based on my blood work, she had no idea how I was even getting out of bed in the morning, let alone, you know, working and volunteering and exercising and stuff. And so none of them could figure out what was wrong. And none of those doctors even asked, well, maybe it's Lyme. That even though it's in my records, none of the medical professionals asked that question either. So during that year, or right around that time, in, I guess, 2014, when I was 30, I went through a major life change, moved to Portland, and shortly after that, I guess 2015, if I have my dates right, when I was 31, I started dating Evan, and also around that same time, started going to counseling, which I plan on doing a video about counseling soon and sort of that progress if you're interested in that. And Evan and I, you know, really hit it off, and in 2016, when I was 32, we moved here to New Orleans and bought our house and started our life here. And then it was, I guess it was 2017 when I was 33 is when my health really started declining. So I had all those symptoms that never went away, and then at this time some other symptoms started creeping back up, and my energy levels just started dropping to the point that I was, I mean, I wouldn't want to say I was bedridden again, but I was having a very hard time getting out of bed. And I was working, but working would take all of my energy. You know, I've been a photographer. I've been shooting weddings for 10 years, and I found myself, you know, during a wedding, just doing everything I could to say, you can get through this, you can get through this, you know, like keeping a smile on my face, obviously not letting the couple know what was going on and that I felt like I was about to pass out and die, and I gotta like run down the street backwards, holding 2 cameras, shooting a second line parade, and then when Evan picks me up after the wedding, I just get in the car and just crash, and I don't get up for 3 days. It was about at that point that Evan said, I want you to go get a Lyme test. And even at that point, my response was, what? Anger and fear and denial. And it took some time. I was like floored that he would even suggest that. Even with my history and knowing everything that I know about Lyme, I was still wanting to deny that it was even possible. So I don't know, it took a couple days or a week, and I came around and said, okay, let's find a doctor and get a test. So that would have been, let's see what my notes say, early 2018. We found a naturopathic doctor here in New Orleans. Went to her. One of the very first things she did was order a Lyme test and some other blood work, and it came back positive. I got a positive Lyme result on the Western blot. Now, she was a good enough doctor that she said, based on everything you've told me, you've had this since 1991, you have a positive test, I don't have enough experience with Lyme to be your doctor through this. And she recommended that I go to a LLMD, which is a Lyme Literate Medical Doctor. And I think that's great. I just want to say that I think that's great, that she was a good enough doctor to know what she can and can't do and know her limitations and know when to send a client on to someone else. So I thank her for that. I think that's fantastic. So again, Evan went back to researching for a Lyme literate doctor in the area, and we found one in central Louisiana. So when we go to him, it's about a 3-hour drive. He's a great doc, friendly guy. Like most Lyme literate doctors, he's had Lyme himself, so he understands and can really relate to you. And he's just a friendly old Southern man, and he's a great guy. He's also been really helpful with treatment. So more than, obviously I'm looking for more than just a nice guy that's going to make me feel good. He's also like literally going to help me get cured. So some treatments that I'm doing. The first thing he did was determine if I had, what co-infections I have. So one thing that they know now about Lyme that they didn't know in 1991 when my parents were first dealing with this in my childhood is that when the tick bites you, it doesn't just pass the Lyme disease bacteria. It has a whole host of stuff that it just barfs into you. And so there's a number of diseases, tick-borne diseases. So it's Lyme disease and its co-infections. There's some common co-infections, some uncommon ones, and a doctor should be able to tell what co-infections you have based on your symptoms and also some blood work. So I was determined to have Lyme disease and the co-infections Bartonella and Babesiosis, which are two very common co-infections. One of them, I get the two mixed up. I think it's Bartonella is also treated with an antibiotic, and Babesiosis is treated with it's more like malaria. So it's not treated with an antibiotic, it's treated with an antiparasitic. So the first thing you wanted to do was knock out the co-infections. So the babesiosis, which is the malaria-like disease, the doctor called it, he said it's like American malaria. he put me on atovaquone for about 6 months. That's an anti-parasitic. It's in the same family. It's very similar to, you probably heard in the news, and I mentioned in my previous video that you probably heard in the news. Oh, the name is escaping me now. The anti-malaria drug that is in the news for whether or not it is a possible treatment for COVID. Hydroxychloroquine. So it's in the same family as that. So it's another anti-malarial drug. I was on that for about 6 months, and that did wipe out a lot of my symptoms. So it ends up a lot of my symptoms were from babesiosis. Another thing that he put me on very early on was a Parasite Cleanse, which would help knock out any other co-infections that maybe he wasn't able to identify. And he said it's just good. It'll just wipe out a lot of just tick-borne diseases in general. So it's just he just called it a generic parasite cleanse. And so that included medications: Albenza, 200 milligrams, ivermectin, 3 milligrams, which Evan pointed out he knew the name of that one from veterinarians. That's something that you give to your dog. Biltricide, 600 milligrams, and Alenia, 500 milligrams. And those, when I went to fill those, gosh, I wish I still had the costs written down, but it was going to be something like $10,000 or ridiculous. It was somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 to get all these filled in America, and so I went to a online pharmacy called Canada Pharmacy Online and got it all for just a couple $100. So if you can wait a little bit and don't need them immediately, you can save literally almost $10,000 by ordering them through the Canadian Pharmacy Online. And they actually didn't come from Canada. They ended up coming from all over the world. So one of them came from India and one from Europe. So just a pro tip there, if you're ever faced with thousands of dollars for a prescription, definitely check online. So we did the anti-malarial and we did the Parasite Cleanse, and then of course the basis of the treatment is the 3 antibiotics. So the antibiotics sort of rotate, but you rotate from the same family. And the reason for rotating, I don't know if I didn't fully prepare for how to explain this, but when you're treating Lyme, if you remember in my last video, I talked about how during the treatment I would have Herxheimer reactions, which is basically the bacteria dies off and then you get sicker for a short period of time from the bacteria being in your body and the dead bacteria in your body. So then you have to get rid of that. And sometimes when you've done that a couple of times and you've killed off the bacteria, they can sort of build an immunity to that specific antibiotic. So then periodically you just switch to a slightly different antibiotic. I don't remember the name of the doctor, Horowitz. Dr. Horowitz is a well-known Lyme doctor who I can't remember the name of his book, but I did read, and his book, I was pleased to see the treatment that he outlines in his book is the same treatment that this Lyme doctor here in Louisiana put me on. So at the first appointment, I was very pleasantly surprised when I heard the antibiotics that he was going to put me on. So I was already familiar with them, and I knew that that was going to be a good protocol. So the 3 that I'm on right now are minocycline, 100 milligrams, 2 times a day, azithromycin, 500 milligrams, 1 time a day, and tinidazole, 250 milligrams, 3 times a day, but only 3 days a week. And those change, but you change inside the same family. So where I'm on minocycline right now, in the past, that can be substituted with doxycycline or a couple other of the cycline family. And then azithromycin, that's really one of the favorite Lyme antibiotics. But if you have to change that one up, you're going to change to clarithromycin or something else in the mycin family. And the same with tinidazole. There's another one that in that family that you can switch to. But those are the 3 I'm on right now, minocycline, azithromycin, and tinidazole. Tinidazole, the one that you take only 3 days a week, that's the one I call the bad pill. I really don't like taking it. I'm just a big baby about it, but the reason you only take it 3 days a week is it's pulsing is what they call it. The doctors know that it's hard on you to take it, and it doesn't make you feel good, but 3 days a week is enough to do some damage. So I think that's the reason that they pulse that one, is just because it's so hard to take, and if you just hate taking that pill, you're not going to get any better, so they let you have 3 days on, 4 days off to get a bit of a reprieve during your treatment. And they've determined that 3 days is enough to kill some bugs. Other medications that I am on fluconazole, which is an antifungal for candida. I have been on these heavy-duty antibiotics since the middle of 2018, so we're going on 2 years at this point. You definitely have to be dealing with some gut issues. So I am also on a very strong probiotic 4 times a day to sort of counterbalance the damage that the antibiotics are doing to my guts every time I take them. The fluconazole also helps with the candida overgrowth. To sleep, I am on gabapentin, the lowest dose possible, which is 300 milligrams, and I just started Lunesta at the lowest dose possible, which is 1 milligram. Even though insomnia has been such a hard thing for so many years, I have always been hesitant to take anything to make me go to sleep, because something about my body is just very easily addicted to substances like that. So I just remember being in my teens, and if I took Tylenol PM for more than a couple of nights in a row, then I needed Tylenol PM to sleep. So I've just always had in my head this fear of taking any sort of sleeping pills. But you have to sleep to heal, and I started taking the gabapentin about a year ago, and it helped some of the time, maybe half the time, and I've just been really dragging my feet trying to get anything else. So at my last doctor appointment, which was just a couple of weeks ago, we added the Lunesta, and so far it's helping more often than not. So we're going to try it for a little while. I am also taking low-dose Naltrexone, 4.5 milligrams, which is an anti-inflammatory, and I am taking Disulfiram, which I've worked up to 250 milligrams. You start very low and you increase every week or 2 weeks depending on how your Herxheimer reactions are doing and how your body's able to handle it. Now, Disulfiram I want to talk about for a little bit because it's really interesting. So it's starting, I believe, in 2016, was found to be, it's touted as possibly the Lyme wonder drug. It's an old medication that's been on the market for a long time for something completely different. Some scientists decided to take a bunch of petri dishes with Lyme bacteria in it and say, we're just going to throw everything, things that are readily available on the market today that have nothing to do with Lyme treatment, and let's see what happens. And Disulfiram is actually for treating alcoholism. So it prohibits your body from metabolizing alcohols. So if you are having trouble not drinking, you take Disulfiram, and then just a tiny bit of alcohol introduced in your body will give you a terrible, terrible reaction, and so it helps people stop their addiction to alcohol. So what they found in this study is that the petri dish with Disulfiram and the Borrelia Burgdorferi bacteria, after the experiment, it had wiped out 100% of the bacteria. All of it, gone, completely sterilized. So they were like, wow, and that's cool. And Stanford also repeated the experiment and found the same thing, 100%. So they don't really know why or how the Disulfiram is so effective against the bacteria. So I guess they're still studying that. It was not known to be an antimicrobial before this study. So it is obviously not something that has been studied enough to be approved by the CDC. So we all know how I feel about the CDC. So that doesn't matter. The evidence is there. The scientific basis is there. The studies have been reproduced in laboratory settings, and the what's the word? Not clinical trials, but the Lyme patients who have been taking it, the doctors are reporting great results. So yeah, it has not had clinical trials yet, but it is getting results, the people who are willing to try it. So I am also trying it. And I feel like it's doing some good. So it's supposed to, depending on how sick you are when you start taking it, they're saying like 4 to 6 months of treatment, which for a Lyme treatment can be years and years. So 4 to 6 months sounds great. I've been on it about 3 months at this point, and so it's possible. I'm not trying to not get my hopes up too much yet, but it's possible at my next doctor appointment that will be about the 6-month mark, so we'll see. In addition to that, I am on some non-prescription treatments. There is a Herbal Protocol by Dr. Buhner He wrote a book called Healing Lyme, Natural Healing and Prevention of Lyme and Co-Infections in 2005, which Evan read and got me started on that protocol. I think it was probably about 6 months after I started antibiotics. I started Dr. Buhner's Herbal Protocol as well. And it includes 3 herbs, andrographis, cat's claw, and resveratrol, all at 500 milligrams, 4 pills, 4 times a day. So it's a lot of pills. You slowly work up to that amount. But I've gotten great results with this also. When I started taking the Herbal Protocol, I was about at my lowest, in bed all the time. This was right after Evan and I had realized that we had to stop trying to make a baby and continue with my treatment first because I was just too sick. So one of the first things we did was start this protocol, and within a week my energy was starting to come back, and I was sick, in bed, sick, and even my energy only came back like 50%, but it was like amazing and fast, and I absolutely know that that is directly because of this Herbal Protocol. We talked to my doctor about taking this alongside with the antibiotics. He said, if it's helping you, go right ahead. He's had a number of clients over the years who've done the Herbal Protocol. He doesn't think that it's the protocol alone, the herbs could cure someone, but first of all, if it made my energy come back within a week, by all means, stay on it for the duration of treatment. But it's not enough on its own to cure someone, probably, but in tandem with the antibiotics, and now also alongside the Disulfiram, I really feel like those 3 things together is what's going to get me cured, finally. So it feels good. It's just been such a long road, and I mean, this has been part of my life since 1991, and it's now been an active part of my life again for going on 2.5 years, and it's just draining mentally and emotionally and obviously physically, and I'm just so ready to be fixed and move on. Like, I don't really know what it's going to feel like when I'm finally all the way better for good. Like, to just be able to go to bed and go to sleep and not have any problems, like, that sounds amazing. And then get up in the morning and not have any problems and not be sick and not be tired and not have headaches and anxiety, and counseling's helping with that, but a lot of my anxiety and neurological issues are also because of the Lyme. So I feel like I'm almost there, and okay, I don't really know how to wrap this up. I will be honest, and I didn't really think about how to end this video when I started making the video, so I thought I would just figure it out as I went, and I guess I've reached the end. So thank you for watching. I hope this was insightful or at least interesting. If you have Lyme or if you know someone with Lyme, I hope this has answered some questions or encouraged you to seek treatment or continue treatment, and know that even after 20 years, there can still be a light at the end of the tunnel. So again, thank you for watching. Get in touch anytime. I'm happy to answer any questions as best as I can. So hope y'all are doing well. Talk to you soon.